Welcome to Waking Up with Wildflowers. I'll be your tour guide, Savannah Early, and this is the late spring, early summer edition. Here we are outside the Goldthwait Welcome Center. It looks like a beautiful morning to take a wildflower walk through the garden. At the beginning of the dry creek, right as we start the trailhead, you can see a large display of frog fruit. And I wanted to show this area here because it's constantly being visited by pollinators, the bees, and tiny butterflies like the snout-nosed butterfly and painted ladies. They love these smaller blooms, and on a quieter day, this whole area will just be buzzing. And it's really fun to just sit, take a moment to just watch it. The plant itself looks like it's moving because of all of the activity that's going on around it. Up ahead are Brazos penstemon, looking a little bit different than they did the last time we saw them. They've lost their purple flowers, and those have been replaced by tiny balls bundled together on the tip of stalks. But I love this stage of this wildflower. I think it adds great textural contrast to the landscape. It's so different from everything else around it, the long skinny blades of the blue stem, the tall trees, the spiny leaflets of the agarita plant. Plus, it's gorgeous the way that it blows in the wind. So with a little change in perspective, thinking outside the box, we can find beauty in all the different stages of our wildflowers. We're gonna go off course now into the dry creek bed. There's a couple things that I want to show you. So under these redbud branches, tall goldenrod doesn't look like much now, but in early fall, late summer, these will send up magnificent fountains of golden color and has medicinal properties to it. Unfortunately, it can often be mistaken for ragweed, and ragweed is notorious for causing seasonal allergies. But the blooms of the goldenrod can aid in these same allergies. Up ahead and to the right, we have some inland sea oats, a great grass to use for flower arrangements. These agaritas are ready to enjoy. They're so good. Quite tart. So a lot of times when people harvest agarita, their plan is to make them into jam or jelly or a wine. Something where you add a little bit of sugar because they are quite tart. So here we are back on trail. Let's take a look over here at our foxglove. No longer in bloom, but going to seed. So we're gonna let that mature, do its thing. But in its place, we've got some American basket flower, that intricate weaving look of the basket flower bud, which gives it its name. And we're entering the garden. So many little blue stems. Here we are at the top of our Wiki Up village. Looks a little bit different than the last Waking Up with Wildflowers. One of the biggest changes is that our Wiki Up is gone. We're working on a rebuild. So the first stage was tearing it down, and now we are planning an outing to go cut down some black willow branches to help us frame, and then we will recover it with grass, so that'll be a couple week project, but luckily we've got the time. Behind it, the rough leaf dogwood is highlighted now. Flame leaf sumac right there. Our Indian blankets are in bloom. And lucky for us, they are right in front of the bluebonnets, kind of hiding this stage of the bluebonnets. So this is what we're wanting to keep these bluebonnets around for. A lot of people during this stage will go ahead and just mow them down. But you need to wait for them to get real nice and ugly. Browned up until the seed pods either pop open on their own, or if you just can't stand it any longer, you can pull them up by the root. They are annual, so no need to keep the root systems behind. But you pull them up by the root and place them on the pavement or on a tarp, give the seeds a chance to mature, and then you can collect those seeds and then spread them to have a nice growth again next year. Cutleaf daisy, Engelmann's daisy, blowing in the wind. We have more Engelmann's daisy off to the left. The rough leaf dogwood blooms just behind that. Up ahead on the top of the ridge, you can see the stalks of the twist leaf yucca and their creamy white bell-shaped flowers. And as we continue down the stairs, we have more frog fruit off to the left. These flowers are so tiny, but they are perfect for cascading off rocks. You can see our pollinators love these little flowers. And although it looks like one flower on the head, it's actually a crown of white flowers all the way around. Frog fruit is also a great ground cover plant. So what we've been doing this year is letting it grow on the back ridge line that is very hot from the street. It's on a slope, and so it doesn't hold water very well, and the buffalo grass has not thrived there. But the frog fruit is taking its place, and we are gladly allowing for that, because anytime that we can have a plant, a native plant that helps us to conserve our water usage, we're going to encourage that plant to grow. So here we are at the top of the ridge line. I wanted to get a different view of the yucca. So if you notice, the last time we saw this yucca bloom, we were up there at the top of the stairs, just above the creek. You can see that below. But I wanted to highlight these yucca blooms. Yucca flowers have a really cool relationship with an insect called the yucca moth. It's a mutualistic symbiotic relationship where both rely on the other for survival. The yucca moth is the only insect that can pollinate these flowers, and in return, the caterpillar's only food source is the seeds of the yucca fruit. And another really cool thing about this is that the female moth, once she lays her eggs in a fruit, will leave behind a scent to make sure that another female doesn't also lay her eggs in the same fruit. And this makes sure that there is enough food for her caterpillars, but at the same time that there's enough seeds left behind for the next generation of yuccas to grow and thrive. And I think that this is an important lesson that we can learn from nature. Greg's mist flower greets us at the bottom of the stairs. This is a favorite of visitors. The showy lavender purple color, the fun shape of the blooms. Also, this wildflower is a butterfly magnet. Here we have another Greg's Mist flower. Right across the way as we cross the creek from the Greg's Mist flower, we've got a button bush. Not yet producing its flowers, but I wanted to take you into my favorite spot in the gardens, one of. Underneath this Mexican plum, we had a great production of plum flowers this year. And they have turned into several native plums. You can see. But one of the reasons this is my favorite spot is it's shaded, but it's a great hiding spot to watch the Greg's Mist flower. The butterflies don't even know you're here, so you can come with binoculars and a butterfly guide. Do some really good learning. There's birds that nest in all these trees, and so you can watch the birds and listen to their calls and just have such a great vantage point tucked away. Cali Locust, Texas Sundrop. If you remember from the last video, we had a coreopsis growing behind it. The first one bloomed today. Here's our first gray golden aster. We have a little corner daisy growing out of the rock. Our sunflowers are taking off. Cool thing about sunflowers that I recently learned was that they can help with soil restoration because they pull heavy metals out of the soil. So not only are we excited about their beautiful sunshine flowers, but they can help us heal our landscape. We have another Gaillardia Indian blanket. And then our Monarda citrionata, lemon bee balm or horseman, a lot of common names for it. But you can see it is starting its tiered growth for its flower. Busy little bee. As we make our way under the pecan tree, I wanted to point out this eastern gamma grass. All right, so here we have another wildflower that is pretty inconspicuous. However, I wanted to highlight it because it is a fantastic edible that you probably have tried at some point. This is wild dill. So wild dill is one that I used to pick not knowing what it was. It had a very familiar smell to it, but it was not something I knew, so it was a weed and I pulled it until I figured out what it was, and now I leave it for not only us to enjoy. It's a great one to crush in between your fingertips and smell, but it is a host plant for the swallowtail caterpillar. So in our wildscape garden, we not only keep things around for us humans, but we're constantly thinking about our insect friends and the birds. And more recently, we've been thinking about soil health and what is going to help feed our microbes and the fungi in the soil, because ultimately that is the base of the ecosystem, and when the soil is thriving, then the whole ecosystem is going to be healthy as well. And as we start to round the corner to head back towards the entry gate, we have our Sunflower City. That one back there in the very back is probably the tallest one. I'd say a little under 4 feet. But it's a great option to have several sunflowers like we do here, growing them in bulk, because several insects like to munch on the leaves. This looks kind of like a grasshopper, I would guess. But a little bit later, the border patch butterfly will lay her eggs. And when those caterpillars start moving around, talk about very hungry caterpillars, they will demolish one of these leaves over the course of a couple hours. I mean, you'll see several leaves will be gone from one day to the next. But these leaves are crazy, y'all. They get so big. Species prairie verbena, so full and colorful. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Waking Up with Wildflowers. We love sharing our gardens with you, and we look forward to